Hello! Welcome back to my recap of Birmingham Chess Congress. So, if you've watched the last few games, you know it's not going fantastically for me. I'm on 1.5 out of 3, having only played people lower rated than me so far. Um, so, not my greatest event of all time, and time for a bit of a comeback if I can muster up the energy. Um, So this round I'm playing against a 2050 ECF. They're a very strong player, clearly. Um, so honestly, I was thinking going into the game with the black pieces. Um, like, I don't. I mean, I was like, I don't stand fantastic chances. Like, very, very strong player with the white pieces. Like, I shouldn't get many chances, but I can only play chess. Yeah, only show up and make the moves on the board. Um, we get, to start the game, we get e4, c5, so Sicilian, knight f3, knight c6, instead of d6, but totally reasonable. We get d4, c takes, d takes, and g6. Now, yeah, I was expecting knight c3 in this position. I'd done a little bit of preparation before the game, and I'd seen that they just played, like, classical Dragon Sicilians with knight c3. That's what I was expecting, but they choose to go c4, which, I mean, I have to be prepared for. So I go bishop g7, they go bishop to e3, keeping their knight reinforced and defended, and I choose, I believe, the third best option in this position. Or, sorry, the third most played option in this position. I play queen to b6, and this is kind of a draw offer. Like, there is a drawing line where um, black goes back to b3, the queen goes back to d8, and then the knight comes back to d4. And realistically, I probably wouldn't have taken it. I probably would have played one of the other variations that I know, like f6 or d6. These are both totally reasonable, or even b6. Yeah, these are all totally reasonable ideas, which I probably would have gone for, but they go for the more, not the more critical option, they go for knight b5. And this, I mean, you're not offering a draw in this variation. Now I can go queen to a5, and they develop their other knight. Now, yeah, here, as you can see in the database, black has quite a good record. I go, in the game, I go a6. I think this is a totally reasonable move. Apparently, the engine much prefers like knight f6 or d6 ideas, and basically arguing that this knight is slightly misplaced on b5. But as a human, it's kind of hard to not take the free tempo with a6, knight d5, and knight f6, because I thought I was doing well here, and I mean, clearly results in the Masters database agree to some extent. I thought I was doing well here because I thought, because actually the best move and the move my opponent makes is knight to b3, and I go queen back to d8. Now think about the position that we got all this time ago. Imagine they go knight b3, e3, knight c3. They've gotten basically all the pieces to the exact same squares as they get into in the game. Like, literally, white's position is the exact same, but I've got the moves a6 and knight f6 for free. Um, I thought that this was good for me. I mean, I didn't think it was great for me. I was like, okay, this is a good version, but it's still a draw. Because you're black and part of the Maroczy, a few tempi doesn't make a big difference. Um, but I thought that this was like a good version for me, because I get this a6 and knight f6, which they didn't need to give me. But actually, the engine says that this is like still much better for white. They go bishop e2, which makes a lot of sense, and I just play d6, avoiding any e5 and c5 pawn breaks. Like, I still think that this is a reasonable version of a Maroczy for me, just because I have a few extra tempi, but it doesn't make a big difference. It doesn't make a big difference. White castles and black chooses to castle. It's interesting that we've still got a lot of crossover between this and the Masters database. Sorry, I don't know if you can actually see that. Let me just check OBS a second. Oh, you actually can't see that. Sorry, guys. But yeah, no, so castles, getting the king to safety. And now they go f3. Just, yeah, makes a lot of sense, solidifying their structure. I wasn't terrified of this f3 move. It makes a lot of sense, but I thought that the reason that they'd played it in this order was so that they could go f4 in one move at some point. And that was a slightly more scary prospect to me, I thought. Like, it wasn't like... I mean, I guess the question is white grabbing a bunch of space or are they overextended? And my opponent didn't want to get into that debate, they didn't want to get into that argument, totally reasonable, they go f3. And I just developed my last piece to e6, targeting the c4 pawn, and they develop their queen to d2. We've both reached very, very normal structures. Maybe I've achieved my position a tempi faster than normal, but it doesn't change terribly much. I was considering a couple of things in this position. I was considering knight e5, I was considering knight a5, I was considering knight back to d7. I choose to play rook c8 first, which I don't think is the most accurate move, but I think it's totally reasonable. It improves my position slightly, getting my rook onto a file, to a half-open file, targeting a pawn. It makes a lot of sense to me. They go knight to d5, and I didn't want to trade. Definitely don't trade with the knight, because then takes, and I'm simply losing a piece. I don't really want to trade with the bishop, because I don't think my knight has anywhere particularly nice to go, but if I'm not going to trade, then I have to deal with the issues of the dark squares on the queen side. So I have to go knight back to d7, consolidating all of these squares, and to be fair, my knight on d7 I think is a very nice piece. And now I do also have the option to take back, and I have this square on e5. They play the very simple move, just rook hc1, makes a lot of sense, just supporting their pawn and getting onto the file that could open up. It makes a lot of sense. Now I go for a move which might look a little crazy if you're not used to these structures. Yeah, if you want to take a second to try and figure out what black should play in this position, to be fair, I don't actually think the move that I play is the top engine move. I think the top engine move was like a5, which feels very, very unnatural to me, at least. But I think I follow a more thematic idea. And I go f5, which is quite common in these structures. And the point is, I just want to get an open file from my rook and try and undermine their center a little bit. Now, I think my opponent panics a little bit here, because I think that there are a lot of slow, sensible moves that just maintain my opponent's position quite nicely, including just takes as well, actually. I think that's probably the best move. I was considering some crazy stuff here. I was considering rook takes, and if they go bishop d3, I was thinking I could maybe do this, which looked a little crazy, sacrificing the exchange, but I completely get rid of my opponent's center. I thought this looked reasonable, but I probably wasn't going to go for this if it was an option in the game. Just want to check this with the engine. Kind of interested in what it thinks. Nope, okay, the engine does not want to work today. Okay, no worries. Yeah, sorry, I think I just gave a spoiler of what my opponent did instead. I think that they can totally play this slowly and just try and improve their position, and I've got pawn islands, they've got more space, and I guess my argument is that I have the slightly better placed bishops in exchange for those things. But they go c5, and I think this kind of, it's still fine, but it's kind of uncalled for, because now it allows me to completely collapse their center, yeah? And now, all of a sudden, they've gone from having a strong central position in exchange for my two well-placed bishops to not having a strong center, and I've still got my well-placed bishops. So I thought here, yeah, again, I'm doing quite well. This is potentially a target, but it's no more of a target than this is. And after this, I want to keep both of my rooks on the open files, so I just go knight f6. If they take, I'm very happy. They get rid of their strong knight in the center, and if they don't take, then I'm threatening to take on e4, and I'm threatening to potentially take the knight, and once these two pieces are blocked off, I've still got the good bishop, or maybe take the knight. I'd need to move one of these pieces first, and And basically, once these two pawns are facing each other, I just have some weaknesses and a slightly better piece placement, I'd argue. But potentially. It's not something I was super happy with. Yeah, I don't think I would have taken the game. I can also just continue improving my pieces with a move like knight e5. But now they definitely panic, and I don't like their next move. They go bishop to b6. And actually, I miss, like, a very clean idea here, which I think is just very good for black. I didn't see this move, knight takes e4. I just didn't consider it. I looked at this move before they played it, and I was like, I'd considered it all the way back here when I play knight f6. I was like, is this something I'm concerned about? I'm allowing them to infiltrate. And I'd looked at knight here, and I'd looked at bishop here, and I just decided that both of them misplaced the pieces. And I hadn't looked at it much further. But I was like, the bishop cannot be happier on b6 than it was on e3. So after this, I just immediately blitzed out queen d7. Because, yeah, again, it's quite a short time control, and I want to play my moves relatively quickly. So I was just like, queen d7. I trusted my opponent probably too much. Which is probably something I should be aware of in the future, but I was like, I thought this was a mistake because it misplaces the piece. It is a mistake because it misplaces the piece, but it's also a mistake because there's more critical idea of knight takes e4. And basically the issue is you can't take here because I just take your queen. And I think I just cleanly win a pawn in this position, actually. Like, I don't think there's any question about it. I'm not sure what white would play here specifically. They probably don't actually allow the trade of queens. They probably have to play something like queen e3 or something. Just to try and maintain some positional compensation a little bit. And this is not super simple, so I'm not... Oh, wait, no, sorry, that just hangs. No, it doesn't. Sorry, I'm silly. But no, it's an interesting position. Maybe I can play something like queen g5 here. I didn't actually consider this in the game, like I say. So I haven't looked at it a ton. But yeah, I just play, I think, what is still a totally reasonable move. And my argument is this bishop is slightly misplaced. And the issue is, it's actually really hard to defend this pawn in a productive way. Because, like, yeah, let's say that you go queen e3. Yeah, again, I've got ideas of just, like, takes, and centralizing my knights. And once my knights have, like, that really nice control, and this pawn is targetable, I think black's doing very well in that position. My opponent chooses not to try and defend the pawn. They go knight to f4, hitting my bishop. I can still take the pawn, but I don't want to allow them to get rid of my bishop. Additionally, there are some other issues here, like maybe if I move my knight back, then there's some like they can pick up the knight here. So if I go something like this, yeah, it just looks a little bit overextended. I don't know. This is probably totally reasonable. But I just want to keep my bishop. My light squares look a little bit weak, so I just play bishop f7, and they go rook d8. Presumably with the idea of takes, they go queen d3, kick away my knight, and then they take on d6 and win that pawn back. And I looked at this and I was like, but it just doesn't work, because I can take on d4, and they can go queen d3, which is what happens in the game. I bring my knight back to f6, and if they take, then I take, rook takes, and just knight e4. And this is simply just a fork. It doesn't look like a fork, but it is a fork, because I'm threatening this rook, but I'm also threatening to capture on b3. And when I capture on b3, my rook opens up, discovered attack on the knight. And additionally, I'm also threatening to just win this pawn on c2, so like at the very least, I maintain my pawn advantage. So yeah, I saw this and I was like, okay, great, so this is just a free pawn. I went in, grabbed the pawn, and I come back. I think that there was more accurate things I could have played here, potentially. Like, instead of just bringing the knight back, like, I think probably I should just support the knight in the center. But I was like, it's done its job, it can come home now. It's fine. But, no, okay, so I play knight back to f6. Yeah, probably rook e8 is a better move. And now they bring their queen over to g3. They spot the tactic at this point, but it's a little bit too late. I've already won the pawn. So I can just centralize my knight and slightly improve the placement of my pieces. They bring their knight back, and I'm up a pawn now, and I mean, it's not the most terrifying pawn in the world. And actually, maybe this is a slight mistake that I'm sort of like, I've cashed in, so I'm just sort of going into the endgame now. Maybe it is slightly inaccurate, but I'm just like, I'm up a pawn, so I choose to trade everything. Maybe there are better ways to maintain my advantage, because now I go d5, and I'm like, everything is super solid, super strong, but actually it's really hard to make progress in this position. I think d5 is a mistake. I think I should just play something slower, like rook c8, and leave my pawn on d6 for now, because as you'll see, when it moves to d5, they have some very simple moves, like bishop d4 to blockade and bishop f3 to attack it, and it becomes somewhat tricky to defend, and it makes it very hard to make progress with black, and that's exactly what happens. We get bishop d4, I bring my bishop out to potentially put on this f5 square, and they bring their bishop out. I don't want to do this immediately, because then they just go to b3, and they're probably picking this pawn back up, with some bishop takes f6 ideas at the right time. So I just go rook to d8, just keeping an extra eye on this, keeping everything super well defended. And yeah, I've probably messed up a little bit of my advantage here by pushing d5. If I just leave on d6, then I maintain my activity and attacks on these pawns, and I don't allow their bishop back to the center. I think probably a slightly similar mistake to in the games that I lost and drew, that like I was giving up on positional advantages once I had the material compensation. Um, yeah, after this they go knight b3, so they're just improving their pieces, putting them on sensible squares. But now that they've used up this b3 square, I now can go bishop f5, I thought. They go queen to e3, and I go knight g4, and basically, yet again, I'm just hoping to trade off more pieces and eventually say, haha, I'm up a pawn. I think this is a totally reasonable move. They go bishop c3 and queen c3, and I think this is a slight mistake, like practically speaking, because now I go rook c8, and yet either the queen has to move again, or they play what they play in the game, which is a supernatural move, which is knight to c5. But there's an issue with this move. There is a glaring issue with this move, and that is that I can just go queen d6. And now, all of a sudden, this knight's under attack, and with my knight and my bishop combination, I'm staring at this pawn on h2. And if you want to get rid of my knight, well, okay, but now I'm hitting your rook. And if you want to get my bishop, then, ooh, I'm up in exchange and a pawn now. And your knight is hanging. Still. So, this looks completely unplayable. And actually, there is only one move in this position. You have to take on g7, according to the engine, which honestly, I don't think me or my opponent even considered was like a playable move. Because let's say that we get takes, I don't know what the engine wants to play here, like queen d4 or something. But like, this just looks utterly terrifying. Like, maybe it's fine. Like, maybe. But, I mean, first of all, black is up 2 pawns. And second of all, oh my gosh, your king is getting chased into the center. And I guess maybe if I turn on the engine, is the engine going to work this time? I don't know why I thought it would. What if I refresh the page? Is that going to help? Give me 1 second. Sorry. So does that? Oh yes, fantastic. So yeah, yeah. So this is the only line according to the engine. Wow, actually, it wants queen c7 here. Gross. But yeah, after this, apparently this position is just a draw, and there's just nothing better than takes, queen e4, bishop e4, queen c5. What is this? Queen c5? Queen c5? What? Oh, and this is, oh my gosh, this is just a repetition. Wow. Yeah, so I think that we can forgive my opponent for not allowing this, and I mean, it's not even the most accurate line, but yeah, unfortunately, it is the only move. My opponent goes g3, trying to block this off, which is a totally understandable move, but cleanly just blunders a knight, and after takes, they simply choose to resign. Is another interesting game. This is actually one of the games that I'm like most proud of recently, and I know that I kind of give my opponent a little bit more hope after I win the pawn than I probably should have. But I thought I played a really nice game here. This made me feel a lot better about my my losses, because I was like, finally, I've been able to convert one of these winning positions. No, I was happy with how I played in this game. I thought that this was very very solid by me. I was never worse with the black pieces, and like these Maróczy structures aren't easy to play, so I'm quite proud of myself as well for being able to play them, and against a very good player as well. Um, well, I think I needed a bit of motivation though after how my last few games had gone, so I was also just trying to be a bit more positive about it and just trying to be like, yeah, no, I can still play chess. I can still play chess. And this puts me in actually a weirdly reasonable situation for the rest of the event. This one guy leading the event has took a first round bye, but then has won every game since. So I'm not going to win the tournament because I've already thrown away a point and a half. But like, if I can pick up a half a point in the last round, if I can pick up a full point in the last round, still some chances of making podium. So yeah, if you want to see if I make podium, come back tomorrow for the last round of the event. Should be fun. Yeah, no, yet again, I am really proud of this game actually, and totally recommend the Maróczy. If you know what you're doing and you understand the positions well, then you can totally get away with playing these. They are totally reasonable positions. I'm realizing this is a slightly shorter video than normal. I don't think anyone's going to complain about that. A slightly more precise analysis of a slightly shorter game. It's going to be a little shorter, but I'm happy to leave it there. Yeah, come back tomorrow for my last round game. See if I can make the podium from this turn around my not particularly good event so far. Thank you for watching. Cheers. Merry Christmas.